unshakable rules to make them fear losing you. In relationships, there's an inverse law at play. The more clear-headed you are, the more obsessed they become. The more emotionally stable you are, the more unstable they get. The more you care too much, the colder their responses. The more you love yourself, the more they love you. At the core, attraction is about admiration and strength. What truly makes someone unable to leave you is your value and strong qualities, not your constant pleasing, submission, or compromise. Today I'm going to share 2 key mindsets that have been tested through countless failures and harsh life lessons. If you can fully understand and apply them, you'll avoid so many unnecessary heartbreaks. 1. Only choose, never try to change. You need to understand something. Adult relationships are not fairy tales. Just because you love someone doesn't mean they will love you back with the same intensity. What is a weak mindset? A weak mindset in love looks like this. You get too emotionally involved too quickly. You desperately hope the other person will respond the way you want. You constantly wonder, why haven't they texted back? Why are they so cold to me? Why are they still in contact with their ex? Why are they so selfish? You trap yourself in endless overthinking and emotional suffering. You become passive and powerless, letting your emotions be dictated by someone else. When you're around them, you sacrifice your boundaries, values, and standards, all in the name of love. But if you can't even control your own emotions, how can you expect to control the direction of the relationship? What is a strong mindset? A strong mindset means knowing exactly what you want and focusing your time and energy on becoming the best version of yourself. You stick to your principles and rhythm. You never let someone else dictate your emotions. You clearly communicate what you can and cannot accept. If they meet your standards, then you enjoy the relationship. If they don't, you walk away without hesitation. Never try to fix or change someone. If their own parents and teachers couldn't shape them in 20+ years, do you really think a few words from you will? If they're already lacking in emotional connection or have poor character, do you really think your kindness and sincerity will magically transform them? It's like me, earnestly advising you to stop playing video games or to go to bed early. Even if my words make you hesitate for a second, you won't actually change unless you truly want to. So, don't waste your energy trying to fix someone. The golden rule in dating: choose wisely, don't try to change them. 2, don't expect anyone to save you. You need to understand, people are practical. In this world, your own well-being is your biggest asset. Those with a weak mindset focus entirely on making the other person happy, thinking that if they just give enough, love will be returned. But they forget one crucial thing. People aren't just with you to give you love. They are drawn to you because they see value in you. They are attracted to you because they see that you're living a fulfilling life. They notice your strength, energy, and the good things you have to offer. So they naturally want to be part of your world. But if you fall into a needy mindset, if you make your life all about them, if you become anxious, clingy, and desperate for them to rescue you, then guess what? They will lose interest faster than you can imagine. Genuine attraction and love come when you are independent, self-sufficient, and at peace with yourself. If your happiness, security, and sense of worth come only from them, then you are already at a disadvantage. People are attracted to those who add value to their lives, not to those who are looking for someone to complete them. Strong people work on themselves first. They focus on becoming better in every way, building a fulfilling life, being confident and self-reliant. This naturally attracts people who appreciate them and treat them with respect. Weak people never improve themselves. Instead, they hope others will fix their emptiness. Think that being extra nice will win love. Believe that giving endlessly will make them irreplaceable. But love isn't a trade. It's a natural attraction to value. Final takeaway: stop chasing, start growing. Don't chase after love like a desperate runner behind a wild horse. Instead, spend your time planting a lush green meadow. Because when spring comes, the horses will come to you naturally. Got it? Now go focus on yourself. If you need relationship advice, let's talk. You can't change anyone except yourself. Everyone, remember this. Adults should focus on selecting, not changing. Because you can't change anyone. Not your partner, not your parents, not even your kids. The only person you can change is yourself. Only when you change will the world around you change. But a lot of people in relationships love to play the role of the savior, especially with those closest to them. Whenever you notice they have issues stemming from their past, you always want to fix them, help them out of their struggles. you see this as your personal responsibility. You think because you love them, because you're their partner, it's your duty to help them become better. But the reality is, you end up putting in a lot of effort and getting nothing in return. In psychology, there's a term called the malice of the helped. It means that when you're overly generous and boundaryless in helping someone, it can trigger the darker side of human nature. When the other person gets used to your help, your rescuing, they start to depend on you. Every time they face a problem, they come to you, waiting for you to fix it. But you're not omnipotent. When you can't meet their needs, they turn around and blame you, even resent you. And in the process of trying to change them, you drain your own energy. You need to understand that everyone's energy is limited. When you give your energy to someone else, it means you're sacrificing your own feelings and interests. But when your efforts aren't reciprocated, you feel unbalanced, gradually growing resentful and hurt. You feel like all your hard work isn't appreciated, and you end up trapped in pain and dissatisfaction. This leads to a strong desire for control. Wanting to change the other person becomes an obsession. The more they resist, the more you push. At first, you might just want to change one thing about them, but this obsession makes you want to control every aspect of their life, hoping they'll become the ideal version you have in your mind. This behavior often triggers their rebellious side, making them fight back until your relationship falls apart. So why do you feel responsible for saving them? First, we need to understand that always wanting to change someone is a classic sign of blurred boundaries. From a psychological perspective, a lack of boundaries often stems from either being overly cared for or severely neglected in the past. For example, if your parents spoiled you, met all your needs, and did everything for you, it's hard to develop a sense of independence and boundaries. In this kind of environment, you learn this relational pattern. You think love has no limits, and helping the other person become better is your undeniable responsibility. As a result, you fall into an invasive, codependent relationship. On the other hand, if you experience trauma in childhood, it might leave you with a sense of inner emptiness, making you feel like you lack value or even existence. In this case, you might try to save your partner using their improvement as a way to validate your own worth, to prove you're deserving of love, to prove you exist. In other words, you're trying to fill your own emptiness by saving someone else. You're really just saving yourself. So get it. Even if you claim it's for their own good, it's essentially a very self-centered act. And a self-centered person in any relationship tends to overgive, then overdemand and overcontrol, leading to endless self-doubt, anxiety, and pain. Alfred Adler once said, "The person who bears the consequences of something is the one responsible for it." And Hellinger said, "Whoever is suffering is the one who needs to change." Combining these two ideas, if the other person has flaws or shortcomings in their personality, they're the ones who should feel the pain, and they're the ones who need to change. If you see their pain and start feeling it too, then what you need to change is how you separate their issues from your own, how to distinguish what's theirs from what's yours. Instead of taking on their burdens and carrying their weight for them, learn to separate tasks. Don't get involved in other people's issues. Don't meddle in their karma. Instead, focus more on yourself, on caring for yourself. Remember, trying to change others drains you, but changing yourself is real growth. When you become better and more accepting of yourself, you'll also become more accepting of the other person. You'll understand and sense their emotions, their fears they're too scared to face. And in this supportive environment, change happens naturally. After all, we all want to become better versions of ourselves. Got it? Follow me and learn how to keep your relationships happy and long-lasting. Growing up being told that your family's poor, don't cause trouble, spend money carefully, and that earning money is hard, kids raised like this often end up more insecure compared to their peers. In psychology, people with low self-esteem often crave attention, but are also afraid of being in the spotlight. For example, when walking past a crowd, they might lower their heads or pretend to be on their phones. When interacting with others, they avoid eye contact and obsess over what people think of them. They overthink small things all day, and even on the bus, they're too afraid to ask the driver to stop, silently hoping someone else gets off at the same stop. They don't like taking photos, constantly fixate on their appearance in the mirror, and when sending voice messages, they feel their voice sounds bad and end up just typing instead. Many people think the reason for their insecurity is that they're not good looking enough, don't have a great body, or don't have enough money. But the truth is, even if one day you improve these things, you'll still feel insecure. Why? Because the logic is backwards. You have a core belief that I'm not good enough, which makes you constantly notice your flaws. During your upbringing, the feedback from your parents and important figures in your life plays a huge role in shaping your self-esteem. If, as a child, you were always told that you're inherently not good enough, you'll believe it's true. Kids don't have the ability to judge for themselves. For example, criticism, they'll say you didn't do something well because you're not good enough. But the truth is, Everyone has things they're not great at, and that's normal. However, parents might blame it on you being not good enough, and they'll nitpick, making a small mistake seem huge while downplaying your big achievements. There's also neglect, favoritism, and venting. They might not directly criticize you, but their attention isn't on you. They might not have time for you, or when they talk to you, it's not about you. They'll talk about how hard it is to make money, how tough life is, how busy they are, their health problems, or how bad their partner is. This makes you feel like these things are important, but you're not. You feel insignificant, like you only matter if you can help solve their problems. But how can a child solve adult problems? So you end up feeling even more like you're not good enough. Besides the belief of, I'm not good enough, there's another necessary condition that triggers low self-esteem. Let's talk about a phenomenon. Why is it that when no one knows what you're doing, you feel more free and confident? But once your friends or parents know about your job or life, you start spiraling into self-doubt? This phenomenon is actually about mental occupation. When there's an audience, we have to split part of our mental energy to cater to them. We instinctively want to appear good in their eyes because we're using multiple evaluation systems to regulate our behavior. But the truth is, everyone is focused on their own stuff. Besides yourself, not that many people actually care about you. Do you have any friends with what you might call ugly loving tendencies? You know, people who are actually pretty good looking themselves, but always seem to go crazy for the less attractive ones in the crowd. The better looking someone is, the less they're interested, but the plainer someone looks, the more they can't get enough. They might even chase after them, despite others trying to stop them. Besides being a personal preference, this kind of aesthetic taste could also be a psychological issue. From a psychological perspective, they might prefer partners who are average looking because they feel insecure. Subconsciously, they think that such partners are more down to earth and less likely to do anything outrageous. When faced with someone who has the standout advantage of good looks, they hesitate to approach because that advantage naturally invites competition. Their lack of security makes them fear being abandoned, so they claim, I'm not superficial. During the relationship, they try hard to find the other person's shining qualities, even if those qualities are practically worthless, just to rationalize their behavior. That's why you'll notice that those with ugly loving tendencies are always going on and on about proving the loyalty of their love. Another reason is a sense of low self-worth. If someone grows up in an environment lacking both materially and emotionally, they can easily fall into a psychological state called low entitlement. No matter how nice the clothes are, they feel awkward and out of place wearing them. No matter how sincere the compliments, they feel uneasy hearing them. When someone truly wonderful appears in their life, their first subconscious reaction is that they don't deserve it. When we were children, the degree to which our parents accepted us is the degree to which we accept ourselves. When we cautiously express our needs and get no response, or even get scolded or humiliated, a negative belief takes root deep inside. My parents don't love me because I'm not good enough. Gradually, we become overly cautious, like feeling out of place in a luxury store, or getting nervous around exceptionally attractive people. This all stems from shame-induced low self-worth. A person who believes they don't deserve good things will constantly collect evidence in life that confirms their inadequacy, ultimately creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, what should you do if you find yourself in this situation? First, unconditionally accept yourself. Acceptance isn't about mental effort, but psychological permission, allowing yourself to be an imperfect person. We've been conditioned to believe in conditional love. You need to have outstanding looks, excellent grades, or remarkable talents to earn others' approval. Because we've been judged this way, we habitually view ourselves through a critical lens, forgetting that humans are inherently a mix of flaws and strengths. So, learn to be your own friend, understand and stand by yourself, and accept everything about yourself without any conditions. Another thing is to shift your mindset. Replace all thoughts of I don't deserve with how can I achieve? You need to understand one thing. I am worthy or I am not worthy is a subjective judgment. Since it's subjective, it means there's no factual basis or objective standard. If you think you're worthy, then you are. If you think you're not, then you're not. Starting today, replace every I don't deserve in your mind with how can I achieve? Remember, most things in this world are attainable if we want them enough. If we can't get something, there might be many reasons, but it's never because you're not worthy. The best way to get back at someone who abandoned you. If you want to get back at someone who abandoned or hurt you, don't try to use their own tactics against them. The truth is, what worked on you won't work on them. It won't have any impact at all. Don't waste your energy cursing them, condemning them, or trying to make them feel guilty. To them, your pain is nothing more than a meaningless side note in their story. It won't shake them. The 3 most powerful ways to fight back. 1. Completely cut them off. Block them. Delete them. Move to a new city if necessary. Whatever you do, leave as fast and as far as possible. Sever all ties, let go of all expectations, and treat them as nothing more than a passing stranger. You were just two people who crossed paths briefly. After this encounter, you both returned to your separate lives. It's okay to remember the past, but never dwell on it. You have to look forward. Didn't they hurt you enough already? Haven't they left deep enough wounds? Or do you enjoy being with someone who doesn't love you? Do you like self-inflicted pain? Do you find pleasure in having your dignity trampled on? I don't know what exactly you're holding on to. What is so irreplaceable about this relationship? Do you really believe that if you just love them hard enough, they'll come back? They won't. They will only lose respect for you. The more you chase them, the less they value you. The more you give, the more they feel superior to you. To them, your love and dedication are not pure affection. They are a desperate attempt to possess them. And the longer you stay in their orbit, the more you will suffer from this toxic attachment. 2. Accept that they don't love you. The biggest reason why people struggle to let go is the endless cycle of doubt. Do they still have feelings for me? Do we have a chance to get back together? Have they truly moved on? But the more time and energy you spend obsessing over these meaningless questions, the deeper you sink into this emotional quicksand. The only way to make them regret leaving is not to beg them to come back. It's to live your best life without them. The faster you let go, the faster you break free. And ironically, it's always when you finally move on and focus entirely on your own happiness that your ex somehow magically reappears. They will see how much you've changed. They will see how amazing your life has become without them. And that realization will haunt them. But remember, once it's over, it's over. Even if they move on to someone new, even if their new partner is more attractive than you, it doesn't matter. Your connection with them is already broken. Their new life is no longer your concern. Your only focus should be on your future, not on the remnants of the past. Once you've achieved true peace, ask yourself honestly, was your love for them genuine love, or were you just attached to the comfort they provided? Were you just hurt by your wounded pride? Were you simply unwilling to let go of your efforts and investment? At its core, what you're struggling to release may not even be love at all. You might not immediately move on, but trust me, you eventually will. Give yourself time and patience. Let things fall into place naturally. 3. Have some dignity. Don't chase them. They didn't choose you. That's their loss. People who are truly lucky will always find the love meant for them. Since they already abandoned you, have some self-respect. Don't beg. Don't chase. Don't lower yourself. A person who truly reciprocates your love is worth keeping, not someone who takes your love for granted. Yes, true love is rare in this world. Yes, people often take genuine hearts for granted. But that doesn't mean you should stop believing in love. You should simply save your love for someone who deserves it. So stop overanalyzing yourself. Stop blaming yourself for what went wrong. The problem isn't you. The problem is their character. They ruined everything, and they will eventually face the consequences of their choices. Losing you is their biggest punishment. For you, letting them go is your greatest blessing. Final words, take your power back. Starting right now, let those painful memories fade away. Go back to being the carefree, happy person you were before them. They were nothing to begin with. Yet somehow you've been obsessing over them. You waste your energy analyzing their thoughts. But even if you figure them out, do you think they'll come back? And even if they do, will they ever give you the love, security, and loyalty you crave? If not, why are you still holding on? Maybe life alone is actually better. So stop idealizing this person. Stop expecting them to change. You don't need someone you have to fix. You need someone who was already good from the start. In adult relationships, you don't change people, you choose them. A person's core character has already been shaped by their entire life experience. Even their own parents couldn't change them. What makes you think you can? And while you sit here crying and hurting, guess what? They're probably out having fun with someone new, not thinking about you at all. So tell me, does this person even deserve a second thought? People attract the kind of partners they deserve. If they move on effortlessly, they are either using people or they've found someone just as toxic as them. Either way, their future isn't your problem. The only thing that matters now is you. The sooner you cut ties, the sooner you heal. You might feel unlucky now. Your job sucks. Your relationships failed. But that's just because you've been stuck in the wrong environment. You let this toxic person cloud your mind and energy. If you truly want to free yourself, if you want to reset your life, then leave them behind completely. Stop entangling yourself in negative energy. Their future no longer concerns you. You can't control their mind or their choices, but you can take full control of your own life. Got it? Now go. Reclaim your power. Blame shifting and gaslighting in toxic relationships. Dog whistle abuse. In toxic relationships, some people have a twisted way of pushing you to your breaking point, only to turn around and blame you for being emotionally unstable. This is called dog whistle abuse, a form of psychological manipulation designed to make you look crazy while making the abuser appear completely innocent. What does dog whistle abuse look like? Imagine this. You're out at dinner with friends, and your partner casually asks in front of everyone, "Why aren't you eating the cake?" On the surface, it sounds like a simple question, but only you know the real context. Your partner constantly criticizes your weight in private. Your friends, they don't know that. So when you get upset, they think you're overreacting. To them, your partner just asked a normal question, and you look like the irrational one. But in reality, this is a calculated move, an inside joke where only the abuser and the victim understand the underlying insult. What is dog whistle abuse? The term originally comes from dog training. A dog whistle emits a sound that only dogs can hear, but humans can't. Similarly, in emotional abuse, the abuser sends hidden attacks that only the victim understands, while everyone else sees nothing wrong. The abuser knows exactly how to trigger you. They know what words will make you furious, and they know how to say it in a way that makes it look harmless to others. So when you react, you end up looking dramatic, while they play the innocent victim. This is a classic tactic used by narcissists, NPD, narcissistic personality disorder. How narcissistic abusers operate. If you ever feel uncomfortable around someone, but you can't explain why, you might be dealing with a narcissist. Narcissists don't show their true colors right away. At first, they create a perfect, charming image to draw you in. They make you feel curious, admired, and deeply connected. And once they've hooked you emotionally, the real manipulation begins. The 4 stages of psychological manipulation. According to manipulation psychology, abusers use 4 key tactics to gain control over their victims. 1. Positive reinforcement. They shower you with compliments, praise, and affection, making you feel special and valued, so you become emotionally dependent on their approval. 2. Negative reinforcement. They start using silent treatment, criticism, and blame, making you anxious and desperate to fix things, so you start compromising just to escape the emotional pain. 3. Intermittent reinforcement, emotional roller coaster. They switch between being loving and being cruel, keeping you trapped in emotional highs and lows, so you become even more addicted to their validation. 4. Trauma bonding, severe emotional manipulation. They hit you with deep emotional wounds, creating fear, confusion, and self-doubt, so you feel too weak to leave. How abusers destroy your self-worth. Over time, the abuser conditions you to believe the more you control these behaviors, the more they'll love you. Have you ever experienced this? When you don't really care about someone, you act casually and without any expectations. Yet they become obsessed with you and chase after you eagerly. But the moment you decide to take love seriously and give them your all, they suddenly become distant and cold. The key factor behind these 2 opposite reactions: neediness. What is neediness and why does it kill attraction? When you really like someone, you want to talk to them all the time, can't wait for their reply right away, constantly compliment and please them, even send them long emotional texts to prove your love. This intense emotional craving is called neediness. But here's the problem. The more needy you are, the less valuable you seem to them. The less needy you are, the more they'll chase after you. I'll give you an example. A real-life example of neediness. A friend of mine once went shopping for a pair of limited edition sneakers he had been dreaming of getting. When he saw them in the store, he was overjoyed. He examined every detail, kept praising the design, and even told the salesperson, "I've wanted these for so long, I have to buy them today." What happened next? The salesperson immediately noticed his desperation. So instead of offering a deal, they already emphasized how rare and exclusive the sneakers were. mentioned that other customers were already trying to buy them, refused to lower the price, saying some people were willing to pay extra. Since my friend wanted them so badly, he lost all bargaining power and had no choice but to pay full price. The same thing happens in relationships. The more desperate you appear, the more power the other person has over you. Why neediness makes you look less valuable. When you show too much neediness, they might start thinking, why is this person trying so hard? Is there no one else who likes them? Maybe they're not as high value as I thought. If they need me this much, I must be better than them. So instead of appreciating your affection, they start seeing you as desperate and easy to replace, even if you are more attractive, successful, and valuable than them. Your excessive neediness can create the illusion that they have higher status than you. Once they feel superior, they take you for granted, think you need them more than they need you. Lose the challenge and excitement of winning you over. This is why many people get ignored or treated poorly, even when they're genuinely amazing. How to control your neediness and make them love you. More neediness isn't bad in itself. After all, attraction naturally creates emotional craving. But you must control it so that your desire doesn't exceed theirs. Here's how. 1. Stop overvaluing their looks and words. No matter how attractive they are, no matter how charming their words, no matter how perfect they seem, none of that matters to you. If you can maintain this mindset and genuinely treat them like a normal person, your neediness will naturally disappear. When you act unbothered yet still friendly, they lose the ability to manipulate your emotions. This is what people mean when they say, want nothing, fear nothing. So 2, focus on giving value, not seeking approval. Instead of constantly seeking their validation, shift your mindset to providing value in the relationship. You're here to add joy to their life, not to beg for their love. You're here to share your energy, not to desperately impress them. You're here to showcase your best self, not to win their approval. When you embrace this mindset, your entire behavior and presence will shift. Even if they are highly skilled at emotional games, they will sense that you're offering value instead of being a needy admirer. Once they recognize your worth, they will naturally be drawn to you and fear losing you. Final thought, attraction is about control. In relationships, the person who needs the other person less always has more power. This doesn't mean you should never express emotions, but you must balance your emotions with control. Got it? Follow me for more insights on creating strong, lasting relationships. How to quickly judge if someone is genuinely a good person. Let me tell you something. When choosing a partner, you should always go for someone who is already a great person on their own. Why? Because when someone has feelings for you, they will naturally treat you well. But only truly good people can provide love that is consistent and stable over time. So how do you judge whether someone is genuinely a good person? Look for these 4 key traits. 1. Do they love themselves? Observe how they act when they're alone. Do they lead a rich, fulfilling, and happy life? Do they know how to take care of themselves? Do they have hobbies, goals, and passions? A person who knows how to love themselves will always have extra love and energy to give to you. But if someone lacks a solid foundation in their own life, if they have no purpose, no fulfillment, and no happiness, then the love they give you will likely be controlling and possessive, not genuine love. A person who doesn't even know how to care for themselves will struggle to give you lasting and stable love. 2. Pay attention to their speaking habits. A person's behavior is a direct reflection of their mindset. Truly kind and emotionally intelligent people tend to have strong empathy. They naturally adjust their responses based on your emotions. For example, you excitedly tell them, I saw this couple going on a desert hiking trip together. It looked so romantic. A thoughtless or self-centered person might instantly dismiss your feelings. Why would anyone want to hike in the desert? It sounds exhausting. The beach is way better. Or if you mention, my friend's partner bought them such a beautiful gift, they might react defensively, saying, why are you always comparing things? You shouldn't care about that. They shut down the conversation instead of engaging with you. Now, what would a good partner say instead? Traveling together is romantic no matter where you go. Hiking in the desert must feel adventurous, while relaxing at the beach is amazing too. They acknowledge your emotions. keep the conversation going, and engage with your thoughts instead of dismissing them. This is a small but powerful sign of emotional intelligence. 3. Do they have a healthy social circle? What does a healthy relationship network look like? The key is clear boundaries. Observe how they interact with friends, family, colleagues. Can they say no when necessary? If they are a people pleaser, someone who can't refuse anyone, they may overextend themselves for others while neglecting their own needs. They may constantly complain about being exhausted, yet refuse to set limits. These people often bottle up resentment and take it out on their closest relationships. You might find that the better you treat them, the more entitled and demanding they become. They might even start taking your kindness for granted. They expect you to be endlessly understanding because I already have to deal with so much. At least you should support me without question. If someone doesn't have healthy boundaries with others, they will likely be emotionally draining in a relationship. 4. Do they have a balanced sense of self-respect? People with an overly strong ego often have a mix of arrogance and deep insecurity. On the surface, they might act superior, but deep down, they fear being seen as weak or wrong. A genuinely great partner knows how to humble themselves when necessary. They have high personal standards, but don't always need to win in a relationship. Can set aside their pride to resolve conflicts instead of making it a battle of egos. Don't use silent treatment or emotional punishment to maintain control. On the other hand, a prideful and insecure partner constantly needs to be right, uses cold behavior or withdrawal to win arguments, struggles to let go of small disagreements because their ego is more important than harmony. A good partner understands that in love, it's not about proving who's right, it's about solving the problem together. In summary, the 4 signs of a great partner. 1. They have a fulfilling and independent life. 2. They are emotionally intelligent and know how to connect. 3. They have clear boundaries and healthy relationships. 4. They don't let their ego control their emotions. Find someone who is already great on their own, not someone you have to fix or rescue. Got it? Follow me for more insights on lasting love and happiness. You don't text me, so I won't text you. Why? This is actually a sign of low self-esteem. Let me be real with you. This isn't strength, nor is it some power move. In fact, it actually puts you in a weaker emotional position. A lot of people play this game without realizing one crucial thing. The more you try to match their energy and play hard to get, the more you actually trap yourself in emotional overthinking, and the harder it becomes to let go of them. Think about it. If you're deliberately holding back and refusing to reach out, it means you're still heavily invested in their reaction. And if they don't text you first, you start obsessing over it. Your emotions swing from anxiety to frustration. Do they not care about me anymore? Why are they ignoring me? Did I do something wrong? At that moment, you've already fallen into their emotional trap. Why this is exactly what manipulators want. People who are emotionally skilled, or let's be real, players, know exactly how to control your emotions. They switch between hot and cold behavior. Today, they're super attentive and affectionate. Tomorrow, they're distant and indifferent. This cycle creates emotional chaos, making you crave their attention even more. Some of them even intentionally piss you off, just to make you react. They're not afraid of you getting mad. They fear you not caring at all. And usually when you start playing their game, they'll throw you a little attention just to keep you hooked. Then once your emotions calm down, they'll pull away again, keeping you stuck in an emotional loop where they have all the power. Over time, you start needing their validation more and more. And before you know it, your entire self-worth depends on their response. And guess what? They barely did anything. It was you who became emotionally trapped. How to stay in control and level up emotionally. If you want to maintain emotional balance and a high-value mindset in relationships, you need to stop engaging in petty emotional battles and start focusing on yourself. Let me tell you the truth. Testing them by holding back is pointless. If you always play it safe, you'll never truly understand how they feel about you. So here's what you should do instead. 1. Take back control. Be direct. If you genuinely like someone and want to build a real connection, forget the mind games. Just reach out when you feel like it. If you're busy handling your own priorities, then focus on your life and text them later. You don't need to overthink every move. This isn't about winning. It's about having the confidence to express yourself without fear. This isn't some mental trick to feel better. This is how people who are truly in control of their emotions act naturally. A high-value person never lets someone else's responses or lack of attention mess with their flow. If someone starts texting less or acting distant, they don't panic or question their worth. 2. Establish your own screening process. Instead of obsessing over whether they like you, ask yourself, do they meet my standards? Do they add value to my life? Are they treating me with the consistency and respect I deserve? Does interacting with them bring me happiness or just stress? If you've already expressed your interest, but they continue to make you feel uncertain, drained, or unimportant, then walk away. You don't need to analyze their every move. You don't need to stress over whether they like you enough. Frankly, that's a waste of time. If someone is truly into you, you will feel it. Not through words, but through their actions. 3. Stop playing emotional chess. Just walk away. If being with someone constantly makes you feel anxious, unappreciated, or exhausted, then you already have your answer. They are not the right person for you. The right relationship won't make you feel like you need to compete for attention. And you sure as hell shouldn't be wasting your energy on a silent war over who reaches out first. That's a game for insecure people who don't know what they want. Instead of proving your worth to them, just walk away. Because at the end of the day, their feelings don't really matter. What matters is whether you feel loved and valued. Final thoughts, keep it simple. If you want to truly own your relationships, you have to let go of this. If they don't text me, I won't text them mindset. Because all it does is keep you stuck in pointless emotional loops that drain your energy. The more you overthink, the more you try to prove a point, the weaker you become in the relationship. Some relationships aren't meant to last, and that's okay. As long as you were genuine, you didn't lose. Got it? Now, focus on mastering emotional confidence and learn how to build a love that lasts. Don't be afraid to go. No contact, and don't worry about a rebound. Many people hesitate to cut off contact after a breakup because they're afraid of 2 things. 1, they fear pushing their ex away for good. 2, they struggle with the pain of detaching, even if it means clinging to an unhealthy relationship. Even if the other person treats them poorly, they believe that as long as they stay in contact, their ex hasn't fully left. But here's the truth. If you continue to reach out, beg, or cling, the only possible outcome is losing them completely. So if you want to regain control, you need to cut them off, but do it the right way. Here's how. Step 1. Understand the real purpose of no contact. The biggest misconception is that no contact is meant to win them back. Wrong. The purpose of no contact is to find yourself again. It's about breaking your emotional dependency on them, accepting that the relationship is over, refocusing on your own personal growth. During this period, you have a chance to raise your energy, self-worth, and personal value. And once you've done that, the future can go 2 ways. They might come back, realizing they lost something valuable, or you might attract someone even better. Either way, you win, because the only way to stop fearing loss is to fully embrace it. Step 2, how to emotionally accept no contact. I get it. Going no contact feels like cutting off a limb. It's painful. But here's the thing. This pain is already happening. You're not the one who ended it. They did. You're just choosing to walk away with dignity instead of waiting for them to reject you again. And trust me, that choice makes a huge difference in how they see you. One of the biggest reasons breakups feel so painful is because the one who gets dumped didn't get enough time to process it. Meanwhile, the one who initiated the breakup has already emotionally detached over time. Let me give you an example. If someone spends months thinking about breaking up with their partner, by the time they actually say it's over, they've already moved on mentally. But the other person, the breakup is a shock to them. They haven't had time to grieve, process, or detach emotionally. So while the dumper feels free, the dumpee feels completely lost. This is where no contact reverses the power dynamic. Right now, your ex thinks you're always going to be there. They assume you're too attached to leave. But when you cut off contact and completely disappear, you force them to face the reality of losing you. And that's when their sense of loss starts to kick in. Step 3, what if they get a rebound? A lot of people panic about their ex moving on quickly. But here's the thing. If they jump into a new relationship right away, it usually means they were already lining someone up before the breakup. These types of people have no emotional loyalty. They were searching for someone new before they even left you. So does no contact change anything? Number, because whether you go no contact or not, they were always going to move on fast. But what if they only started dating someone new after no contact? In that case, their rebound is likely a distraction, not a real connection. When people rush into a new relationship, it's often because they can't handle being alone. At this stage, they're looking for temporary relief, not a real long-term partner. And guess what happens over time? They start to compare their rebound to you. When the honeymoon phase fades, they'll start noticing that their new partner isn't as good as they imagined. That's when regret sets in. And if you've spent no contact building your life and improving yourself, they might come crawling back. But here's the best part. By the time they realize your worth, you'll be too evolved to care. Step 4, focus on yourself. That's the real power move. Instead of stalking their social media or wondering, are they thinking about me? Put all that energy into upgrading your life. Work on your goals, fitness, and mindset. Get involved in new hobbies and social circles. Strengthen your self-worth and independence. Because here's the reality. If you level up, they will either come back on their own or you'll outgrow them completely. Either way, you win. Final thoughts. No contact is always a win-win. By choosing to go no contact, 1, you get stronger and reclaim your power. 2, you force them to process losing you. 3, you set yourself up for a better future, either with them or someone new. At the end of the day, they may regret losing you. They might even try to come back, but by then you'll be so evolved that the real question is, will you still want them? And that's the true power of no contact. Got it? Need relationship advice? Let's talk. Why does a breakup hurt so much? Have you ever wondered why breaking up feels like pure agony? Why does it feel like your heart is being ripped apart? Why does the pain feel so deep that you can't even breathe? Well, what I'm about to tell you might completely change the way you see things. Because from a psychological perspective, the intense pain you're feeling isn't just because you love that person so much. Instead, it's because you already had pain inside you all along. Your heartbreak isn't just about losing them, it's about losing the emotional crutch that was filling the emptiness inside you. The root cause of your pain, emotional dependency. Think back to your relationship. Did you constantly seek reassurance that they loved you? Did you always fear they might leave you? This kind of behavior comes from a deep-rooted fear of abandonment. The moment you entered the relationship, your partner's love felt like a drug. It gave you temporary relief. For a while, their presence soothed your inner emptiness. But when they left, that emotional void came back stronger than ever. And now the fear of abandonment is hitting you even harder. Why do you have such a strong fear of losing them? The truth is, if you find yourself overly attached to someone, it's usually because you lack emotional security within yourself. You weren't just in love with them. You were using the relationship to fill a void. And that's why they were never able to fully meet your emotional needs. It's not that they didn't love you. It's that your own inner wounds made it impossible for you to fully feel their love. You were too focused on whether they could fix your pain instead of learning how to heal yourself. Even if they come back, nothing will change. Let's say they return to you. Would that really solve the problem? No, because the real issue isn't the breakup itself. It's the emotional dependency you placed on the relationship. If you don't fix this, the same insecurities will just keep coming back. You'll still feel anxious, needy, and afraid of losing them again. You'll still seek constant reassurance that they won't leave. You'll still overgive, over-sacrifice, and overcompensate to keep the relationship alive. But guess what? The more you desperately try to hold on, the faster they'll pull away. Your partner was never meant to save you. The purpose of a relationship isn't to fix your inner wounds. A partner is someone you share love with, not someone you use to feel whole. If you constantly feel on edge, afraid they'll leave, it's because your sense of self-worth depends on their validation. And when you base your happiness on someone else, you will always feel insecure, no matter how much love they give you. What you need to do now. Before you can have a healthy relationship, you need to rebuild your own inner strength. Focus on your own growth. Read, work, expand your mindset. Elevate your self-worth. Stop seeking external validation. Fill your own life with joy. So you're not waiting for love to complete you. Because the truth is, a complete, confident person attracts healthy love. But a person desperate for love will always settle for less. Stop holding on to someone who hasn't changed If your ex hasn't truly grown and you go back to them expecting a different outcome, you're just setting yourself up for more pain. Instead of thinking, if I hold on to them, I'll be happy again. Ask yourself, if I heal myself first, what kind of amazing love will I attract in the future? Because when you stop needing love to feel whole, you gain the power to walk away from toxic patterns. And when that happens, you will finally be ready for the kind of love you deserve. Final reminder, love should never be a fix for your wounds. True love is about giving and receiving freely, not about filling emotional gaps or proving your worth. The strongest, most fulfilling relationships come from two complete individuals, not from one person trying to save the other. So instead of chasing after someone who left, focus on becoming the best version of yourself. Got it? If you need relationship advice, let's talk. The 4 stages every long-term and stable relationship must go through. What I'm about to share might be eye-opening or even a little painful. I suggest watching this with your partner so you can both identify where your relationship currently stands and what challenges you might face. Let's get into it. Stage 1, the honeymoon phase. This is the exciting, passionate stage that begins once two people officially start dating. You can't stop thinking about each other. You want to spend every free moment together. Conversations feel endless and thrilling. You reply to messages immediately, eagerly waiting for their response. You're filled with butterflies, excitement, and pure joy. During this phase, everything feels magical. It's all about discovery, infatuation, and deep emotional connection. But as time passes, the intensity of passion begins to settle. And that's when you enter Stage 2. Stage 2, the cooling off and independence phase. Once the initial excitement fades, the relationship shifts into a more stable rhythm. This is where things start to change. Your partner isn't as enthusiastic as before. They take longer to respond to messages. You may start feeling ignored or less prioritized. Small frustrations and disagreements start to surface. At this point, one partner, usually the one less emotionally attached, begins to crave more personal space. Meanwhile, the other partner, often the one with stronger emotional needs, starts to feel confused, insecure, and anxious. They might begin to overthink the sudden change in behavior, constantly seek reassurance. Why are you replying so slowly? Why don't you share things with me anymore? Act more clingy or needy, fearing the relationship is losing its spark. This imbalance often leads to Stage 3. Stage 3, conflict and power struggles. No two people have the same upbringing, values, or emotional needs. In the early honeymoon phase, differences don't seem like a big deal. Passion masks them. But as time goes on, these differences become more apparent. And if you don't know how to communicate effectively, these small issues snowball into major conflicts. Misunderstandings grow. Frustrations pile up. Resentment builds. This is the stage where most couples struggle the most. It's the breaking point for many relationships. If conflicts aren't handled properly, they accumulate into constant disappointments. And these repeated disappointments are what ultimately lead to breakups. For long-distance relationships, this stage is even more challenging. The distance makes things harder. You can't physically be there for each other. It becomes difficult to share everyday life. If you're in a long-distance relationship, you must set a clear end date for closing the distance. Without a plan to reunite, the relationship will slowly weaken over time. Stage 4, stability and long-term commitment. If you survive Stage 3, congratulations. You've learned how to manage conflicts, and your relationship is now entering its most mature and stable phase. At this stage, couples understand each other's needs and boundaries. Learn how to navigate disagreements without escalating them. Value the relationship beyond just romance and excitement. This is the real essence of love. It's not just about passion, but about deep companionship and shared growth. But let's be real. 80% of couples never make it past Stage 3. That's why so many relationships fall apart before reaching true emotional depth. Final words, how to make it last. If you're struggling in the middle stages, remember this. Relationships have a natural progression. You can't stay in the honeymoon phase forever. Hard times don't mean the love is gone. It means you're evolving. But to make it work, both partners need to commit to pushing through challenges together. Recognize which stage you're in. Communicate openly about your feelings. Work as a team to build a stronger foundation. If you both put in the effort, your relationship will become stronger than ever. Got it? Follow me for more insights on love, relationships, and lasting happiness. The only situation where someone who left you will regret it If you want someone who coldly walked away to regret losing you, let me tell you, begging won't work. Apologizing won't work. Finding someone better to make them jealous won't work. None of these things will truly make them feel regret. By the time you've reached the point of breaking up, the relationship is already beyond the point of being fixed by effort alone. So what actually makes someone regret leaving you? It's not chasing after them. It's fully accepting the breakup and redirecting your focus onto yourself. That's the kind of energy shift that makes you irresistible again. How do you make them regret losing you? You need to become someone who can pick up and move on without hesitation. Waiting around for them won't make them respect you. It will only make them look down on you even more. The best way to shock them is to make them realize one undeniable truth. You may have loved them deeply, but you're not going to sit around waiting for them like a fool. If they want to leave, let them go. Because here's the reality of human nature. People rarely appreciate what they already have. They only realize its value after they've lost it. This is why in relationships, the person who gives the most often gets taken for granted. Think about it. The more effort you pour into someone, the more confident they become. If you constantly put them on a pedestal, they start to believe they're better than they actually are. Their 5 out of 10 attractiveness suddenly feels like a 12 out of 10, all because you made them feel that way. And once they feel that inflated sense of self-worth, they start thinking, maybe I deserve someone even better. What's happening here? They've grown too confident, and in their eyes, your worth has decreased. How do you flip the script? It's actually simple. Take back your energy. Stop focusing on them. Stop caring about what they're doing, who they're with, or how they feel. Accept the breakup fully, not as a tactic, but as a genuine commitment to yourself. Because here's what will happen next. They'll start to notice your absence. They'll lose the validation they once got from you. Their inflated confidence will start to deflate. And suddenly, that pedestal you put them on, it crumbles. Without your constant attention, they start to feel less special, less important. This is when they begin to miss you. What if they try to get your attention again? Once they realize they no longer have control over you, they might start acting out of character. Suddenly, texting you out of nowhere, creating drama just to get a reaction, stalking your social media, watching your stories. But don't mistake this for genuine love. Most of the time, it's just their ego struggling to handle the fact that you moved on without them. Stay focused on yourself. Don't let their little games shake your progress. Should you ever take them back? That's entirely up to you. But by the time they finally realize what they lost, you'll probably be thinking, do I even want them anymore? Because the truth is, if you keep growing, evolving, and leveling up, by the time they want you back, you'll have outgrown them completely. And when you reach that point, that's when you've truly won. Got it? Need relationship advice? Let's talk. In psychology, a lot of people who struggle in life actually have a childlike mindset. They get easily frustrated, lack a process-oriented approach or long-term thinking, and often feel powerless and give up halfway. On the surface, they seem anxious, but deep down, they're empty and numb, only really feeling something when they're anxious or afraid. You'll notice these individuals often have a sort of learned helplessness or laziness. The root cause usually comes from getting too little recognition during childhood. Their parents rarely praised or acknowledged their efforts. They might want to try hard, but they can't keep going because deep in their subconscious, they feel like no matter how hard I try, it won't matter. Essentially, they don't believe in their own abilities. From a psychological standpoint, our deepest need is often the desire for others' praise, especially from our parents, since parents are basically a child's only audience in the early years. But some parents excel at denying and undermining their child's efforts, invalidating the child's feelings. Why are you crying? Or can't you be a bit more sensible? Dismissing the child's abilities. You can't even do this small thing right. How will you ever succeed? Criticizing the child as a whole. How did I end up with such a useless kid? If a parent repeats negative statements like, you're no good, you don't understand, you're not allowed, you're so dumb, those words eventually become the child's life motto. This is essentially the gaslighting effect in psychology. There's another group of kids who are taught to always be quiet, obedient, never talk back, never inconvenience others. As they grow up and enter society, they often become invisible in a crowd, too afraid to express their opinions or go after what they really want, making it easier for them to be controlled or exploited. Ironically, the rebellious kids who dare to speak their minds often end up doing better because they're allowed to follow their own interests. They're braver in pursuing what they want, not trapped by overthinking or worry. Now, if you find yourself in this situation, what can you do? In psychology, there are really only two main drivers that push people toward success: fear and love. Both can look the same on the outside. They lead you to commit, to invest a lot of energy, and to sacrifice a lot. But the inner motivations are very different. When fear is the driver, you obsess over winning or losing. You feel like you can't afford to fail. I have to do this, and I must do it perfectly. That pushes you to cover every detail, but it also piles on the stress. Your subconscious uses fatigue as a way to force you to stop this self-torment. The greater the fear, the more you push yourself, sometimes using even more fear to force success. But the downside is huge. When you're drained beyond a certain point, the subconscious kicks in a defense mechanism. Depression, when love or passion is the driver, you don't really think in terms of persistence or hard work. If you succeed, great. If not, at least you enjoyed the process. You focus on the journey, not just the outcome. So if you plan to do something, focus on optimizing the process and making it enjoyable. Remember, not pushing yourself too hard is often the best kind of persistence. Think about the past. Most of the things you tried so hard to stick with ended up abandoned. But the things you did without forcing yourself are what you naturally kept at. Bedtime delusions. In psychology, refer to those moments when, right before falling asleep, you lie in bed and start imagining all kinds of unrealistic scenarios, like being with your crush or becoming a superstar. In short, you concoct fantasies that bear no resemblance to your real life, using them as a source of happiness to lull yourself to sleep. Many people assume this is simply a sign of an active imagination, but it can actually be a psychological issue. Psychologists believe that if someone had a particularly painful childhood, they may escape into fantasies, also called maladaptive daydreaming. This occurs when a child endures overwhelming emotional trauma, and the brain, to protect itself, develops a psychological defense mechanism. For instance, fantasizing about being loved or having all the things they can't actually get. They project these fantasies onto the outside world. For example, people who obsess over fictional couples do so because they are channeling their desire to be loved into the couple they admire, watching them share a sweet romance to satisfy their own longing for a beautiful relationship. Fans who dream about celebrities similarly project their ideal partner fantasies onto their favorite star. And those who enjoy reading over-the-top romances where the lead male is controlling and powerful, despite the cliché story, are often finding some form of surrogate fulfillment for the attention they lacked growing up. When we're children and we can't handle extreme emotions, we develop dissociative avoidance as a defense mechanism. Faced with a harsh and helpless reality, the brain invents an imaginary, ideal world so we can turn inward for emotional support, heal our feelings, and patch over our real-life traumas. Freud believed that for kids, fantasy is a tool for escaping reality. In his view, childhood can be stifling and painful. Children are small, lack a voice, and their wishes often go unrecognized by adults. They're forced to follow grown-ups' rules, so they create vivid fantasies as a kind of mental safe haven to deal with their emotional issues. Of course, moderate daydreaming is normal, but using fantasies too frequently can heighten our sense of unreality and strip us of the courage to face life's hardships. The temporary relief from fantasy rarely solves problems. Worse, over time, people can become dependent on fantasy. Each time they successfully dodge negative emotions through imagination and gain a brief respite, it reinforces the belief that fantasy kind of works. Then next time, they'll be even more inclined to escape into fantasy rather than confront reality. Though sometimes a bit of detachment from the real world is necessary, in general, learning to face reality is an essential part of growing up. Don't let your defense mechanisms block your path to maturity. How quickly someone can acknowledge and accept reality determines how fast they can act and find solutions. This acceptance is the foundation of all real change. If you struggle with serious procrastination and never start doing things until the very last minute, even though deep down you really want to get them done, you might tell yourself, it's okay, there's still time. I'll just enjoy myself today and start tomorrow. Then you put it off again and again, piling up anxiety until you're left feeling horrible about yourself. You could totally finish 8 hours worth of work in half an hour, but instead you end up spending 8 hours doing just half an hour of actual work. You might even procrastinate on going to bed. When you procrastinate, your brain falls into a kind of fog. You don't really see the immediate benefits of doing the task in front of you. It's like, I could do it now, I could do it later. If I don't do it at all, maybe nothing will happen. You go back and forth and eventually choose something that gives you instant gratification, like scrolling on your phone all night. Another reason procrastination happens is that many procrastinators have perfectionist tendencies. They want each task to be flawless, but expecting perfection can make them fear mistakes or failure even more. They can't accurately gauge their true abilities or the situation they face, so when it's time to actually do something, they hesitate until the last possible moment. Even if you realize you're procrastinating, your mind might be flooded with worry and anxiety, all bottled up in a body that refuses to take action. The worst thing about procrastination isn't just the delay, it's the loss of confidence in yourself. What helps with procrastination? 1. The behavior consistency theory. In psychology, there's a concept called behavior consistency. Think of the alarm going off in the morning. If you stay in bed, your brain says, "I'm still so tired," so you keep lying there. But once you physically get out of bed, you might realize you're not that tired after all. Or if you don't feel like studying, force yourself to sit at your desk for a few minutes. You'll often find that you quickly fall into study mode. Doing the action signals to your brain that you want to study. That's the essence of behavior consistency. Your thoughts can influence your actions, but your actions also influence your thoughts. So when you feel like procrastinating, just get started. You'll discover it's not as hard as you thought once you begin. 2. Use your internal drive. Your intrinsic motivation is the main force that makes you want to do something for its own sake, not just for the end result. If you're driven by external forces, "I want to" turns into "I should." A lot of cultures say the process isn't important, only the outcome is. But in reality, it's tough to get great results if you're miserable during the process. Take exercise, for example. If every workout feels painful, you'll probably quit, so you won't see the benefits. What we need to do is shift our focus from the result to the process. We should keep improving how we experience the task so that we can actually enjoy and feel fulfilled while we're doing it. By making the process fun or rewarding in itself, you'll naturally procrastinate less. In a person's family of origin, the most suffocating aspect isn't simply how parents criticize or suppress their child. It's the fact that, while making you feel suffocated, they also make you believe they genuinely love you. So when you start questioning or resisting your parents in a toxic family environment, you're hit with overwhelming guilt. Deep down, you still disagree with their behavior, and this constant inner conflict leads to a lot of internal turmoil. Psychologically, there's a manipulation tactic called guilt induction. It's a straightforward way to control someone by making them feel guilty. Guilt itself is a higher level emotion that separates humans from animals, but it's also a vulnerability that can be exploited. The essence of guilt induction is when someone frames what should be their own responsibility as a special gift to you, or they emphasize their huge sacrifice. Through emotional stories and complaints, they spark your sense of guilt, making you feel you owe them something. For example, some parents say, "I've worked myself to the bone just to put you through school. If it weren't for you, I would have divorced your dad ages ago." If the child believes statements like this, they'll feel their very existence is a burden to their parents. They'll start acting extra obedient, trying to take care of their parents' feelings. In a sense, the child becomes the adult, providing emotional support to the parents, while the parents, through their complaints, push their own anxieties onto the child and also achieve a subtle form of control. During this process, the parents act like the willful child, and the child ends up carrying the emotional weight that should never have been theirs. This role reversal puts a lot of emotional pressure on the child, often leading to an anxious personality. There's another variation where parents make a big deal out of their hardships. For instance, they wash clothes by hand instead of using a washing machine, then complain about back pain and talk about how much they've sacrificed for the family. In reality, they're simply doing things their way and not considering whether the child wants or needs this kind of help. Afterward, they use moral pressure to demand gratitude and compliance, seeking payback, attention, and control. Children driven by guilt often concede to requests they never wanted to accept in the first place. Some kids, because they're naturally kind and responsible, keep trying to make their parents happy, even fantasizing about changing their parents' fate. But when reality crushes that fantasy, they're left feeling powerless and defeated, spiraling into deeper guilt and self-blame. Over the long term, this mindset can seriously distort one's self-image and emotional well-being. In Adlerian psychology, there's a famous concept called the separation of tasks. It says that if you want to free yourself from the headaches of certain relationships, you need to distinguish between what's your responsibility and what's someone else's. Once you draw that boundary, all you really need to do is handle your own business well. Understand that your parents' hardships are the result of countless choices they made in the past, shaped by their own level of awareness. It's not your fault, and you shouldn't feel guilty or blame yourself. Plus, only when you're living a good, fulfilling life can you gain the energy and capacity to truly love and support your parents. Some people are so into 2D characters, so-called paper lovers, that they have no interest in real-life partners. In their eyes, their beloved doesn't need to be a real person, and love doesn't need to be mutual. Because they have a sort of emotional purity, they find it easier to put their faith in fictional characters than to deal with real people. Even though it's not an official psychological disorder, if this preference becomes too strong, it can lead to delusional tendencies and cause social difficulties. From a psychological standpoint, paper love is basically a product of the human brain's imagination. Even when you know something is fake, it can feel emotionally real. It's like watching a horror movie. You know it's not real, but you still feel scared. Why do some people develop paper love? 1. Avoiding social interaction. Many people struggle with communication, especially around the opposite sex. They might feel so anxious that they don't know what to say, or worse, they might dislike these interactions altogether. Paper love lets them escape all that. In the virtual world, you can talk freely without worrying about awkward moments, and it's easier to express your true feelings and find a sense of happiness. 2. Childhood influences. If someone grew up in a tense family environment, maybe their parents were always fighting or got divorced, they may have a deep fear of real-life relationships. By focusing on 2D characters, they avoid getting hurt in real-life situations. 3. A need for emotional support. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the need for belonging is third on the list. With the stress of school, work, and daily life, we're all looking for a safe harbor to help us deal with our emotional burdens. Reality doesn't always provide that, but fictional characters who seem flawless can give us a sense of support and emotional comfort. They don't fight with us, so we put our hopes in these characters from the virtual world, keeping it in balance. If we manage our preferences responsibly, paper characters can provide emotional support and a sense of warmth, serving as a refuge from real-life troubles or even as a perfect confidant. The key is to find the right balance and recognize that, while these characters can offer comfort, they're still part of a fictional world. Today, I want to share a perspective that might challenge how you think about relationships. The way someone argues with you can reveal how deeply they love you. If you want to know whether someone is right for you, it's simple. Just look at how they handle conflict. When the relationship is peaceful and calm, it's hard to notice someone's flaws. But when arguments arise or emotions run high, that's when people let their guard down, revealing their true character. In psychology, this guard is tied to defense mechanisms. Each person has a unique one, shaped by their personality. Different personalities mean different defense styles, so only people with similar personalities typically share similar defense mechanisms. Where do defense mechanisms come from? They're formed by a person's childhood experiences and past relationships. If you really want to understand someone, one of the best ways is to have a disagreement with them. By triggering their defense mechanisms, you can see glimpses of their past and get closer to their true thoughts and emotions. Conflicts can bring hidden feelings and psychological patterns to the surface, helping you understand them on a deeper level. Example, the avoidant personality. If your partner has an avoidant personality, when an argument happens, they won't hurl harsh criticism or fixate on who's right or wrong. Instead, they'll shut down quickly, like covering their ears and hiding away. No matter how upset you get or how much you feel hurt, they won't listen. Why? Because when confronted, avoidant types often crawl into a cave and cut off communication. That's their defense mechanism, a protective barrier that shields them from potential emotional harm. To them, arguing feels like a personal attack, so they shut the door to protect themselves. This defense mechanism might stem from intense verbal abuse in the past, or from a childhood where parents belittled them. Those negative experiences leave deep marks on their psyche and gradually become a natural form of self-protection. If you're with someone like this, you'll find it tough to resolve conflicts. Once they close themselves off, communication is nearly impossible, often leading to coldness or even emotional violence. They're not just blocking out pain, they're also blocking empathy. So no matter how much hurt or love you show, they can't feel it. That's why being with an avoidant partner can feel like dealing with someone who's cold or indifferent. But it doesn't mean they lack empathy. It's more about self-preservation. When they sense a threat, they instinctively lock themselves away. Unfortunately, this can unintentionally hurt the person closest to them. Digging deeper, it reveals they're extremely afraid of getting hurt. To avoid any potential emotional harm, they shut out all intentions, good or bad. Yet sometimes arguments aren't just about venting anger. They can also be about expressing unmet needs or hidden pain. The more someone fears getting hurt, the more pain they've likely endured before. Almost every avoidant person has faced emotional trauma in childhood and tried countless times to communicate or stand up for themselves, only to fail. That's how they ended up relying on this one-size-fits-all defense mechanism to protect themselves. It's easy to label avoidant people as too cold, but remember, it's this very defense mechanism that's been with them since childhood, time after time. On the other side, the anxious personality. In contrast, someone with an anxious personality reacts to conflict by losing emotional control. They quickly become more aggressive, using attack as their defense. It's like saying, "I'll scare you first so you don't hurt me." This doesn't mean they truly want to fight. It's their way of crying out for attention. All their heated words are really about unmet emotional needs, a desire to be seen, heard, and loved. The anxiety is just how they express it, not the core issue. Because anxious types typically lack a sense of being loved, there's a strong chance their caregivers never noticed or met their inner needs when they were kids. The parents just forced their plans onto the child. As a result, the child feels their true self isn't lovable. So during a conflict, their instinct is to constantly show themselves, using any tactic to get the other person to grasp what they feel and want. Sadly, they've never learned a healthy way to communicate. They end up expressing their fears or insecurities by snapping or blaming their partner. If their partner is mature and can see through the angry words to the fear underneath, they can offer compassion. But if the partner has an avoidance, why conflict reveals true needs. The more arguments you have, the clearer it becomes what someone fears. Ultimately, you start seeing what they really want. Conflict isn't something to fear, it's something to face courageously. Confrontation allows both people to learn about each other's triggers and adapt. By doing so, you'll find the best way to interact with each other, making their relationship sweeter and more enduring. Follow me to learn how to nurture a long-lasting, fulfilling relationship. True emotional value isn't just about asking if someone's eaten or dressing them warmly. Let me tell you something. You might have been offering emotional value in the wrong way all along. The people who never get abandoned in relationships understand one key principle. Even if they break up, they can quickly reconcile because their partner can't truly walk away from them. Have you ever wondered why, despite not being a bad catch and putting so much effort into a relationship, you still end up getting dumped? Why is it that they're so cold to you, but you can't let them go? The real issue is that you don't truly understand what sustains a relationship. What's the deal with emotional value? In today's fast-paced digital world, we hear a lot about emotional value. But let's be real, most people completely misunderstand it. Many relationships fall apart because people don't know how to properly give emotional value. Today, I want to clear this up for you. Save this and take your time to understand it. The common misconceptions. A lot of people think providing emotional value means being overly accommodating, clingy, or constantly catering to the other person. Some even think emotional value is about controlling their partner through various means. That's all wrong. This kind of over-the-top giving actually makes your partner value you less, not more. Why? Because you don't understand what emotional value really is, what emotional value really means. Here are 3 key points and an example to help you understand. 1. Fulfilling emotional needs. This is true giving. 2. Not fulfilling emotional demands. This is taking, not giving. 3. Mutual value exchange. This is healthy emotional balance. Example, missing the mark on emotional value. Say your partner comes home from work, sits quietly on the couch, and looks upset. You assume they've had a bad day or argued with a friend. So you sit next to them and say, "Hey, no matter what's going on, you can talk to me." But instead of opening up, they brush you off or seem even more distant. You might feel hurt and think, "I was trying to show care. Why didn't it work?" Here's why. 1. You made it about you. You assumed what you would want in that situation is what they need. 2. You mistook taking for giving. What you really wanted was their emotional response. To feel like your care was appreciated. That's not giving. That's asking. How to truly provide emotional value. Here's how to get it right. 1. Seek permission first. Instead of assuming, ask what they need. Say something like, "Do you want to talk, or would you rather have some time to yourself?" If they say they want space, respect that. By doing so, you show understanding and support without imposing your needs on them. Sometimes giving emotional value is less about what you do and more about what you don't do. Later, when they have processed their emotions, approach them gently. Start with a small, thoughtful gesture, like offering them a drink, and then express understanding. I get that you prefer dealing with things on your own, and I respect that. Just know I'm always here for you, no matter what. This approach often encourages them to open up naturally, leading to deeper emotional connection. 2. Emotional exchange. True emotional value involves mutual sharing. Once they've opened up, share your feelings too. For instance, say, "When you were upset earlier, I was really worried about you, but I didn't want to push because I know you value your space." Then ask for emotional value in return. "I'd love for you to let me know what's going on when you're ready. I want to be there for you." Here's the truth. Only when you ask for emotional value will your partner truly start giving it. That's when they'll begin to treasure you and your relationship. Final thought. Effective emotional value isn't about doing everything for your partner. It's about understanding, timing, and balance. Learn to give and take in a healthy way, and your relationship will grow stronger. Got relationship questions? Let's talk. In psychology, people with social anxiety tend to stick to familiar faces in any social setting. If they agree to meet a friend, and the friend unexpectedly brings someone new, they feel awkward and uncomfortable. They dread the thought of strangers starting conversations, and even avoid eye contact with people handing out flyers. Because they don't talk much, others might think they're rude, cold, or even arrogant. But the truth is, they genuinely don't know what to say. A lot of people assume the biggest problem with social anxiety is low self-esteem, but that's just the surface. The real issue is self-deprecation. Over time, constantly putting themselves down leads to low self-esteem. Where does self-deprecation come from? The habit of self-deprecation often stems from childhood. Many people with social anxiety grew up with overly critical parents. Parents who always noticed their mistakes and shortcomings, pointed them out bluntly, and criticized them without restraint. To these parents, their child could never do anything right, and no matter how hard the child tried, it was never good enough. Over time, the child develops a psychological defense mechanism called identification. They start believing, if my parents criticize me so much, it must mean I'm the problem. I'm not good enough. This leads to habitual self-criticism and self-deprecation. Even after leaving that environment and no longer facing external criticism, these individuals continue to put themselves down because it's become an ingrained habit. What can you do if you struggle with social anxiety? If you think you have social anxiety, the first step is understanding a concept called emotional flashbacks. An emotional flashback is an overwhelming, distressing regression to childhood feelings of shame, fear, or inadequacy. When you feel terrified in social situations, you're often re-experiencing those childhood emotions. How to manage emotional flashbacks. 1. Recognize your state. Start by identifying your emotions. Are you feeling anxious, afraid, ashamed, or physically tense? Are you imagining worst-case scenarios? Acknowledge what's happening and say to yourself, I'm experiencing an emotional flashback. 2. Remind yourself you're safe. Tell yourself, even though I feel scared right now, I'm safe. There's no real danger. I'm an adult now, and I can protect myself. The next step, systematic desensitization. This method, also known as gradual exposure therapy, was introduced by a South African psychologist. It's a simple two-step process. 1. Create a social anxiety hierarchy. Make a list of situations that trigger your anxiety, ranked from least to most stressful. Assign a score to each situation based on how anxious it makes you feel. The more detailed your list, the better. 2. Gradual exposure. Start with the easiest item on your list and practice it repeatedly until it feels natural. For example, in the first week, you might practice asking a stranger for directions. Do it so often that it eventually feels as comfortable as talking to a close friend. Once you've mastered one level, move on to the next. Over time, your social anxiety will gradually decrease. Sometimes social anxiety is a kind of armor, a way we protect ourselves. To truly address it, ask yourself, what am I really trying to protect by avoiding social situations? Understanding what's behind your avoidance is the first step to breaking free. If your partner starts showing these behaviors, it might be time to seriously consider cutting your losses. There's an old saying, better to destroy 10 temples than to break one marriage. When it comes to relationship issues, I've always taken the approach of solving and analyzing problems, rather than simply saying stay or leave. But if your partner displays the following behaviors, it's a clear sign that the mutual effort in your relationship is gone. If you find yourself giving everything to this relationship while getting little to nothing in return, then I strongly suggest you consider walking away. Point 1, they don't appreciate you. The most critical factor in determining whether a relationship is worth continuing is whether your partner truly appreciates you. At the beginning of a relationship, we often focus on each other's strengths, but over time, flaws become more apparent. True love is about cherishing someone's strengths even after seeing their flaws. If your partner always fixates on your weaknesses, whether it's small things or major issues, and constantly criticizes you, that's a red flag. Worse, if they air your flaws in front of others, like joking about your snoring or personal habits. Despite you telling them it bothers you, it shows a lack of respect. 1 or 2 jokes may not seem like a big deal, but if it crosses a line for you, take it seriously. A partner who truly values you won't disregard your feelings. Point 2. They drain your energy. Ask yourself, is this relationship making you happier and more vibrant, or is it leaving you drained and miserable? I once read something that stuck with me. The right person helps you become better, happier, and more alive. If you're feeling weighed down, constantly upset, or even depressed, it's worth taking a hard look at your relationship. Being in a partnership shouldn't feel like being a worn-out workhorse that's endlessly giving while getting nothing in return. Don't let someone sap your energy or emotional value while they thrive. Point 3. Their actions don't match their words. The most reliable way to judge someone's intentions isn't by listening to what they say, but by watching what they do. For example, they might say they want to marry you, but their actions tell a different story, like avoiding conversations about big decisions such as buying a house, planning a future, or integrating you into their life. If they're not actively working toward a shared future with you, they may just be using long-term promises as a way to keep you around in the short term. Point 4. Communication and respect are key. When issues arise, it's important to stay as objective as possible. Instead of falling into cycles of suspicion or distrust, approach problems with an open mind. If someone insists that their perspective is always right and dismisses yours as wrong, that's not healthy. And if they use your insecurities as a way to control you, that's a lack of respect. No matter the situation, a good partner will never make you feel like you owe them or that you're responsible for fixing everything. Relationships are built on mutual respect, not power struggles. Final thoughts. At the end of the day, only you can decide if your relationship is right for you. We can evaluate compatibility based on objective factors like shared goals or values. But love is deeply personal. Some people prioritize mutual support and growth, while others value different things entirely. That said, while love comes in many forms, the signs of not being loved are pretty universal. If you feel drained, miserable, or like your best self is slipping away, it's time to stop making excuses for your partner. If you find yourself crying more than laughing, or feeling like life would be easier without them, then it's time to let go and save yourself. Got it? Follow me for more tips on building happy, lasting relationships. In psychology, there's this idea that struggling to focus on studying might actually come from a lack of love. When you're trying to study, you might feel really lonely or even suddenly overwhelmed for no obvious reason. It's not that you don't understand the material. It's more like there's this emotional block, a heaviness inside. Your mind might drift to unpleasant memories and you lose your rhythm easily. This happens because you've got unmet emotional needs and feelings that haven't been addressed. What you need is more positive emotions to tap into your inner drive and willpower. Basically, to do something well, you need to feel happy and motivated. Kids who feel loved and happy tend to be free of unnecessary worries and emotional distractions. They can focus entirely on their studies, which often leads to better results. But for kids who grow up feeling unloved, they may develop a tendency toward overcompensation as adults. For example, if they didn't get pocket money as a child, they might have secretly envied others who could buy things, all while pretending not to care. Then when they grow up and can afford it, they might go overboard with shopping, finding a kind of comfort in spending money. This behavior is about compensating for that neglected inner child. When someone's emotional needs aren't met early in life, their psyche often gets stuck in that stage of development. And when it comes to romantic relationships, they might project that sense of lack onto their partner. They crave emotional security and want someone to always be there for them. Their partner becomes the primary source of love and safety they've been searching for. But this can lead to intense control issues. They want constant reassurance of their partner's love, 24/7. They may unintentionally push their partner away because they've never truly experienced love, so they don't know how to give it properly or recognize when it's real. Here's the thing, because they feel like they've missed out on love, they desperately long for it. That longing makes them place too much importance on relationships. While most people see love as a significant part of life, they make it their everything. This mindset often leads to repeated heartbreak. We often hear that the solution to a lack of love is to learn to love yourself. But many people misunderstand this concept. They think loving yourself means giving in to all your desires, but that's not it. The truth is, indulging every whim won't bring true happiness. The pleasure from fulfilling desires is short-lived. Overindulgence isn't self-love, it actually harms you. When you're driven by your desires, you lose your independence and creativity as a person. True self-love is about caring for your well-being. Stay away from people and things that make you unhappy. Learn to say no when something feels wrong. Walk away from painful situations. Pay attention to your feelings and don't ignore them. Recognize when you're uncomfortable and take action to protect yourself. Being kind to yourself means creating space for healing and growth. Another part of loving yourself is accepting yourself. If you didn't feel loved by your parents, here's what you can do. Think back to your childhood. Picture moments you shared with your parents. Look for a specific memory that made you feel warm or safe. Focus on that moment and hold it in your mind. Even if your parents didn't always do their best or couldn't meet your needs, there's likely a small moment where you were loved in the best way they knew how. The most effective way to heal isn't searching for love from others. It's realizing you've been loved in some way all along. What's scarier than being obsessed with romance? Being obsessed with potential partners, also known as having a relationship-first mindset. This means that when you see a guy, your instinct is to evaluate his qualities and think about whether he could be your boyfriend. The first thing on your mind isn't whether you could be friends or something else, it's whether you two could be a couple. Sometimes when a guy glances at you a couple of times during a conversation, you might start wondering if he's into you. You may even be quietly scoring him in your head, weighing the pros and cons. This mindset is actually a reflection of a patriarchal society's influence on gender roles. When romantic or sexual relationships take priority over all other connections, your thoughts around men narrow down to just two questions. Does he like me? Or how would I rate him? Two people might have many things to talk about, but this mindset traps you. It reinforces gender stereotypes and diminishes you as an individual. For women, your relationship with your father is often the first relationship you form with a man. The father is the first male figure in a girl's life, and this relationship significantly shapes how she views men later on. If the father-daughter relationship is healthy, the daughter tends to find more joy in romantic relationships. The father sets an example of how to interact with men and helps shape her ability to respond to male figures. However, if the father was absent or the love from a father was lacking, she may have limited experience engaging deeply with men. This can lead to difficulty managing relationships with the opposite sex or loving someone in a balanced way. There are noticeable differences in how men and women experience this relationship-first mindset. For men, this mindset often involves seeking validation of their desirability in relationships. They want women to show interest in them. Since men are typically more logical and less emotionally expressive, they might hint at romantic interest during conversations, like thinking, "She smiled at me. She must be into me." For women, this mindset tends to be like an addiction to evaluating potential partners. When they meet a man, they automatically start rating him in their minds. Women's emotions tend to be more intense and fluctuating compared to men. They prioritize loyalty over passion and are cautious in relationships to avoid getting hurt. As a result, women often practice evaluating men around them, seeing potential romance as the ultimate outcome of any interaction. As they grow older and gain more life experience, many women begin to realize the importance of having male friends and start questioning this mindset. So how can you break free from this relationship-first mindset? One main reason for this mindset is limited interactions with men outside of romantic context. If you've never experienced genuine friendships with men, you might think romance is the only option. To change this, try participating in co-ed activities where romance isn't the goal, like hiking or cycling together. When everyone comes together for a shared interest, interactions are more organic and friendship-focused. Remember, men can be your study partners, work colleagues, or just friends. When interacting with men, avoid assuming romantic potential from the start. Before you engage, remind yourself that you can just be friends or partners in a non-romantic sense. Follow me for daily psychology insights. There are people in life who, as they grow older, start feeling more and more distant from their parents. When they get hurt or feel wronged, they don't talk to their parents about it. They don't feel like sharing or expressing anything with them. They get used to going long stretches without calling home, and when they do call, it feels like a painful task they have to complete. Sometimes they'd rather be around strangers than spend time with their own parents. From a psychological perspective, this is tied to what's known as an avoidant attachment style. People with this attachment style rarely talk about their feelings. They value independence and see relying on others as a sign of weakness. If a relationship gets too close, they unconsciously push people away. This personality often develops because of experiences in their original family. Psychologists have a term for it: disappointment-based emotional isolation. When kids repeatedly experience disappointment and negative emotional feedback, they start rejecting emotional input from the outside world. It becomes a self-protective mechanism to avoid getting hurt again. Two types of parents often raise children like this. The first type is killjoy parents. For example, you save up to buy them a gift, but they criticize it for being too expensive or impractical. You achieve something great, but they say it's not first place, so what's there to brag about? You take them on a trip, and they complain, "What's so great about this? You're just wasting money." These parents have a special way of doubling your frustrations. When you share joy with them, they drain that joy away. A kid who approaches them excitedly, full of hope, gets doused with cold water. And the worst part is, these parents don't even realize they're doing it. They think they're just telling the truth, always ready to say, "No, you're wrong, that's bad, that's impossible." But their so-called advice doesn't make things better. It doesn't lead to better outcomes. All it does is feed their need to criticize, boosting their sense of superiority as experienced adults. Kids who grow up in this kind of environment are prone to low self-esteem. When they do something, their first thought is, "Am I going to get scolded?" As adults, they struggle to feel relaxed. The second type is controlling parents. They say things like, "I'm doing this for your own good," or "If you weren't my kid, I wouldn't care at all." They guilt trip you with, "Have you ever thought about why I do this? Don't you have a conscience?" Controlling parents strictly dictate their child's actions, demanding unconditional obedience. At the same time, they are emotionally cold, rarely considering their child's needs or desires. When they say, "I'm doing this for you," what they really mean is, "You better listen to me." There's no real choice. This kind of parenting is hard to recognize, especially in East Asian cultures, where being obedient and respectful to parents is seen as a virtue. Following your parents' demands is expected. Disobedience is labeled as disrespect. But here's the thing. You don't need to change your parents or force yourself to accept their flaws. What you need to do is accept your past, acknowledge all the painful truths, and allow yourself to feel and release those emotions. It's okay to feel sad and angry. Once you let those feelings out, you might realize that some things don't matter as much as you thought. Never forget to love yourself. Embrace your younger self. Tell that child, you did nothing wrong. You are worthy of love. Follow me for more psychology insights. Exploring the depths of your mind too much can be dangerous. Once you cross that line, you can easily slip into nihilism. In therapy, many people who struggle with depression often start off by overthinking life, philosophy, and the meaning of existence. These individuals might obsess over minor issues for an entire day. When they hear others talk about them, they can spiral into feelings of self-doubt and anxiety, getting stuck in that moment and unable to let go. They may even blame and criticize their past, naive selves. Over time, they feel this deep exhaustion, not just physical tiredness, but a profound mental and emotional fatigue. This kind of anxiety and mental burnout happens to everyone occasionally, but they notice this time is different. Instead of fading away, the feeling becomes more intense and persistent. This state of mind can cause their mood to plummet. They start talking less, going out less, losing their appetite, and feeling drained of energy. Suddenly, everything feels pointless. They might lie in bed all day without eating or drinking, not even wanting to reach for a water glass next to them. But this isn't laziness, it's a symptom of depression. At this point, people might say things like, "You're just overthinking. Just relax and let it go." But that's like telling someone with a cold to just stop their runny nose. Depression is a medical condition caused by imbalances in neurotransmitters. It's not something you can simply will away. Others might say, "You're just bored. Get busy and you'll feel better." That logic is backward. It's not that being idle causes depression. It's that being depressed leaves you with no energy to do anything. Just like sneezing doesn't cause a cold. You sneeze because you have a cold. So besides seeking professional help, how can you cope with these feelings on your own? We're taught from a young age that emotions fall into two categories, positive and negative. Naturally, we avoid the negative and chase the positive. This leads to a harmful cycle where we hate ourselves for feeling low and force ourselves to snap out of it. That's just self-torture. Instead, you need to honor your feelings. Can't sleep? Then don't sleep. Feeling down? It's okay to feel down. Don't fight it. No appetite? Skip a meal. Too drained to work? Rest for a while. Don't feel like socializing? Spend some time alone. Your feelings are proof that you exist. When you follow your feelings while doing something, you gain a sense of autonomy and presence. Over time, you'll start to appreciate the beauty and authenticity in those moments. This is how you build a deeper connection with your experiences. If your parents or others constantly criticize your feelings, telling you that you're wrong or inadequate, and you start to trust their judgment over your own, you risk losing your sense of self. When you no longer feel vibrant and alive, you begin to question the meaning of life. This can lead you down a path of nihilism and eventually into the trap of depression. Follow me for daily psychology insights. If you get easily irritated by small things, like the sound of knocking, bright lights, the clinking of a spoon on a bowl, or even someone's facial expressions while chatting, it might actually be a sign of sensory overload. This often happens when you're tired, sleep-deprived, or under a lot of stress for a period of time. Psychology explains that sensory overload is especially common among highly sensitive people, HSPs. HSPs tend to react to external stimuli much more intensely than others. It's like your ears pick up a wider range of sounds, or your taste buds detect a richer variety of flavors. For some, this high sensitivity is genetic. For others, it develops from growing up in a high-stress, oppressive environment. For example, being raised in a household filled with arguments, feeling constantly on edge or in a state of alert, experiencing parents who frequently criticize or put you down. This can make you hyper-aware of danger and extremely sensitive to others' emotions. In such situations, children often learn to read subtle cues and end up becoming highly sensitive people. When people talk about being sensitive, you might hear things like, stop overthinking, don't be so fragile, or learn to be more thick-skinned. At some point, sensitive became a negative label, as if everyone is supposed to be carefree and numb to the world. But instead of trying to change who you are, it's better to recognize the gifts that come with high sensitivity. Your highly developed nervous system and keen perception give you a rich inner world filled with vivid thoughts and emotions, the ability to notice details that others might miss, strong skills in analyzing and processing information, deep empathy that allows you to feel others' emotions as if they were your own. This ability to deeply connect with others helps you build more meaningful relationships. Sensitivity also makes your mind more active and imaginative, boosting your creativity and ability to make connections between ideas. In fact, many philosophers, artists, and painters throughout history were highly sensitive people. Psychologist Carl Jung once said that high sensitivity can greatly enrich your personality. And it's true, while being sensitive can cause pain, anxiety, and overthinking, it also deepens your life experience and adds layers to who you are. So don't see your gift as a burden. Don't just focus on the challenges it brings and ignore the surprises and strengths it offers. Try to harness this gift. Your gentle, finely tuned nature might be far more powerful than you realize. Follow me for daily psychology insights. If you often get angry in your intimate relationship, it's not necessarily because you have a bad temper. It's because your needs are going unseen. Psychology tells us that most anger is actually a defense mechanism. When things don't go the way you hoped and you feel powerless to change them, you look for someone to share the burden of self-blame with. Here's a simple example. Imagine your child stays out late after school, hanging out with friends. When they finally come home, it's really late. Most parents, who are seeing their child return so late, get extremely angry and ask, why are you even coming home now? Do parents really not want their kids to come home? Of course not. There are usually two reasons behind this reaction. One, parents often place their expectations onto their children. When these expectations aren't met, they feel disappointed and lash out at the source of that disappointment, the child. Two, parents have tried calmly explaining things many times, but the child doesn't listen. When gentle words don't work, they turn to stronger emotions to express their frustration. So why is it that you're usually calm, but when it comes to your intimate relationship, your emotions become unpredictable? Just like with parents, when it comes to your partner, the person closest to you, you naturally project your expectations onto them. You want their actions to validate your hopes. If they don't respond the way you expect, your emotions spiral and you get angry. The purpose of your anger is to make your partner see your needs and change their behavior. But here's the problem. Not everyone can see the deeper meaning behind your emotions. When they're met with your negativity, they often only see your criticism of them. This can quickly lead to intense arguments, cold silence, and unresolved issues that only widen the gap between you two. If you want your relationship to last, you need to learn how to express your needs in a healthy way. It's okay to have emotions, but avoid expressing your thoughts in a purely emotional way. Emotional outbursts can create a sense of dependency, where you're waiting for your partner to recognize your feelings and meet your needs, just like a child who cries for attention. But you're an adult. When you notice you're getting angry, the first thing you should do is calm yourself down. Then think about why this situation is making you upset. What is it that you really need? More often than not, you'll realize your anger isn't caused by some catastrophic issue. It's something you can resolve internally. That doesn't mean you should always suppress your needs. If you feel your needs aren't being met, it's completely fine to say directly, I'm upset because you're not seeing my needs. However, you also need to understand that just because you express a need, it doesn't mean your partner has to change. They have the right to choose whether or not to adjust their behavior. And if they choose not to change, it doesn't automatically mean they don't love you. Even in seemingly perfect marriages, it's not that both people don't have tempers. It's that they've learned to handle their emotions in a mature way. Follow me for daily psychology insights. If you want to end a relationship over something small, it's actually a trauma response. Because you have high expectations for your partner, when they can't fully meet your inner desires, you start feeling disappointed. But you don't know how to deal with conflicts in the relationship, and you don't know how to maintain a long-term connection. Someone with a secure attachment style, when facing conflict, will bravely engage in tough conversations, always wanting to face and resolve the issues in the relationship. But someone with relationship trauma will often avoid the conflict because they fear being hurt. A lot of popular advice today teaches you how to cut your losses quickly. If someone hurts you, you should leave right away. Any relationship that makes you uncomfortable should be walked away from. But have you ever thought that simply ending a relationship might actually show you lack the ability to handle it? When your partner does something you don't like, have you asked them why they did it? Have you listened to their side of the story? Any relationship that faces problems will make you feel uncomfortable or scared, and especially if you have inner wounds. You're more likely to enter into defense mode, wanting to avoid the relationship altogether. But a healthy relationship requires you to accept your own wounds and have the courage to be vulnerable with your partner. If you can't face your true self, always thinking of ending the relationship the moment something goes wrong, you might find yourself stuck in a painful cycle of jumping to a new person every time things get tough. Because the real issue can't be solved by just changing partners. It's not easy to meet someone, so cherish the relationship as you go. Follow me for more daily psychology insights. Today I'm going to share a perspective that might shake up the way you think. If you want a healthy relationship, don't be too good to your partner. Hold on, don't rush to disagree just yet. Watch this video through and you'll understand. So why do I say you shouldn't be too good to your partner? Because at its core, a relationship is about equal exchange. For instance, if you as a wife are good to your husband, you expect him to give you the same care in return? It's not about making him feel superior. When you as an older sibling take care of your younger brother or sister, you hope they'll appreciate it and not give you too much trouble. When you treat neighbors or business partners kindly, you hope they'll have your back when it matters. This is the mutual give and take of human relationships. But if you give to your partner without holding back, you'll disrupt this balance. You'll end up feeling unappreciated while they start to take things for granted. A good relationship should be balanced. If you give 100%, they should at least give you back 80%. If they're only giving you 30%, you're going to feel hurt. If you want your efforts to be appreciated and want your partner to cherish you, here are a few suggestions. 1. Control how much you give. There's nothing wrong with being good to someone you love, but giving too much can leave you disappointed. If you're always telling them to eat well, sleep enough, stop playing games, and work out more, basically acting like a second parent. If you're constantly checking their social media, worried they're hanging out with the wrong crowd, you might think you're being loving, but they'll just feel smothered. Overcaring can end up making only you feel good. Instead of giving them your all, ask if they need your help first. Helping when it's actually needed means more. Washing their dirty socks until your hands are raw might not mean as much as just leaving a light on for them late at night, or giving them a hug and some comforting words when they're down. Value yourself. If your partner wants to take you out to a fancy dinner and you say, "I'm not hungry, you go ahead." Or they plan a trip and you say, "I'm fine at home, you go without me." If they're cold to you for no reason and you brush it off as they're just in a bad mood, you're lowering yourself and making things harder for yourself. When you constantly put yourself down like this, of course, they'll treat you like you're worth less. Don't expect them to cherish you. They probably won't even bother comforting you. If you want others to value you, you have to value yourself first. Treat yourself like something precious, and they'll treat you that way too. 3. Don't be afraid to lose them. This is the most important point. If you're scared of losing them, you'll end up compromising too much, becoming smaller and smaller in the relationship. If they believe you can't live without them, they'll start taking advantage of that. If you're upset, they won't apologize. If you're hurt, they won't care. Think of it like someone who's already full. They're not going to keep stuffing food in their mouth. You have to show them that yes, you love them, but you're still an independent person. You're capable of loving and being loved by others, not just them. You're good to them because you hope they'll return the favor. If they can't do that, then you can take that goodness back. When you have control, you'll be happier. In relationships, never stop improving yourself. Because when you're your best self, others will cherish and respect you. If you want more advice or have any relationship questions, feel free to ask me. Follow me for more daily psychology insights. Why do people say that breaking up once can really test if it's true love? Because real love doesn't just fall apart easily. True relationships often become even sweeter after weathering storms together. A breakup is like a magnifying glass. It reveals the subtle problems and hidden conflicts you might not have noticed while you were together. Whether you're married or dating, going through a meaningful separation can show you if your partner is truly sincere and worth committing to for life. It also helps you decide if the relationship is worth continuing. That's why there is a saying, you see a person's true character during a breakup. If someone moves on quickly after a breakup or seems completely unfazed, you might actually be lucky to have seen their true colors sooner rather than later. For them, when relationship problems arise, their first instinct isn't to work things out, it's to avoid the issues and find someone new. But people like this rarely find lasting happiness. No matter how many partners they go through, the same problems resurface because they never confront their own issues. Instead, they just keep blaming others. On the other hand, those who fight hard for the relationship after a breakup, who try every way to communicate and reconnect, are often the ones who truly care. These are the people worth trusting for a lifetime. When faced with challenges, they think about resolving the issues and improving the relationship, rather than just walking away to find someone else. In fact, breaking up can be the ultimate test of love. It can break old, unhealthy patterns and expose the problems between you two, pushing you both to grow and improve. As long as both of you can have open, honest communication, sharing your true feelings and needs, and work to meet each other halfway, those old misunderstandings and barriers can be resolved. So breaking up doesn't necessarily mean the end of a relationship. Sometimes it's the beginning of something even better. Follow me for more insights on how to build happy, lasting relationships. The truth is, kids who were super independent and well-behaved growing up often face more psychological challenges as adults. They're the ones who deal with everything on their own, habitually refusing help from others. They hate bothering people and don't want to be bothered in return. They can go for long stretches without contacting family, rarely missing or feeling the need to reconnect with their parents. Even when they're upset, they keep it to themselves instead of sharing or seeking comfort. Sometimes they even avoid closeness or intimacy with their parents altogether, which makes people think they're cold or heartless. But this behavior isn't true independence. It's rooted in disappointment. Disappointment-driven emotional isolation. In psychology, this is called disappointment-driven emotional isolation. It often stems from emotional neglect during childhood. For example, imagine a child seeking help from their parents during a difficult moment, only to be ignored, or worse, criticized. Picture a kid falling down and hearing their parents say, "Why are you always so careless?" Over time, the child learns not to rely on others for comfort or support. The mindset becomes, if I don't expect anything from anyone, I won't be disappointed. How over-independence affects relationships. People who grow up overly independent can become emotionally distant. They may struggle to connect deeply with others or form close, loving relationships, often developing an avoidant attachment style. On the surface, they might appear calm, rational, and self-reliant, but in reality, they're just building walls to keep themselves safe. While these walls protect them from pain, they also block out the joys of genuine intimacy. In some cases, they even project their emotional barriers onto their partners, dismissing their partner's emotional needs as unreasonable or excessive. For instance, if their partner wants closeness, they might label them as clingy. If their partner shows vulnerability, they might see it as dramatic or fake. To them, being self-sufficient means they can't get hurt. How to break down the walls. If this resonates with you, remember, these defense mechanisms once helped you survive, but they might now be holding you back from truly connecting with others. Here's how to start letting go. 1. Acknowledge your needs. It's okay to have needs. It's okay to want help. Begin by recognizing that needing support is a natural part of life. Find people who are willing and able to meet your needs in a healthy, balanced way. 2. Stop chasing love from those who can't give it. Maybe in the past you had to rely on people who let you down. But now you can choose relationships with those who are capable of supporting and accepting you. 3. Take small steps toward dependence. For overly independent people, asking for help can feel almost impossible. Start small, send a text, ask for a little favor. These small requests won't overwhelm others, but they'll help you experience the joy of mutual reliance. Over time, these small actions will build your confidence and allow you to relax and enjoy the give and take of a healthy relationship. Follow me for more psychology insights and practical tips for personal growth. If you've experienced childhood trauma, you might notice a few common patterns in yourself. 1. Learned helplessness. This happens when, as a child, you kept trying but only experienced failure. Over time, you developed a sense of powerlessness. Now, as an adult, you might find yourself wanting to quit your job when work gets tough or end a relationship after an argument. Instead of trying to solve problems, your first instinct might be to run away. This reaction stems from growing up in an environment where your parents didn't help you solve problems. Maybe you suggested solutions, but they never took your ideas seriously. Over time, your subconscious started to believe that your thoughts don't matter or that you can't solve anything. Eventually, you might stop coming up with ideas altogether. When you face something painful or overwhelming, your first reaction becomes avoidance. This escape response is a defense mechanism, protecting you from completely breaking down. It's what we call avoidance. While it might feel shameful, it's also a survival tactic that works, at least temporarily. 2. Tendency to blame yourself. If something goes wrong, your first instinct might be to think it's your fault. People who are quick to blame themselves often carry too much emotional weight as kids, experiencing pain they shouldn't have had to bear. For example, if something bad happened when you were little, Your parents or teachers might not have cared to figure out what actually happened. Instead, they immediately blamed you. Over time, this kind of treatment can make you devalue yourself, lose confidence, and develop a habit of self-blame. 3. Reading the room too well. This often comes across as high emotional intelligence, but the truth is, your ability to easily sense others' emotions may come from having a parent who was unpredictable or emotionally volatile. If your parent was prone to sudden outbursts, you likely learned to protect yourself by paying close attention to their tone, expressions, and mood shifts. This survival skill might help you understand people now, but it can also leave you overly concerned about others' opinions. A single look or comment from someone might trigger your overthinking and emotional exhaustion. Recognizing these patterns, when the same painful scenarios keep happening in your life, it's not random. These repeated experiences are your mind's way of highlighting unresolved trauma and limiting beliefs. From a psychological perspective, our behavior reflects the influence of our childhood environment. For example, if you're overly sensitive or self-critical, it might be tied to feeling like you weren't good enough growing up. This can limit your confidence, even in adulthood. You might hold yourself back from pursuing better jobs, healthier relationships, or other opportunities because deep down, you believe you don't deserve them. If you're struggling with the effects of your upbringing, it's worth focusing on breaking free from those mental barriers. Remember, many of the challenges you face are designed to help you grow. The universe has a way of giving us the same lessons over and over until we truly change. Follow me for tips on breaking free from family trauma and becoming your best self. What is a pseudo-intimate relationship? It's when a relationship ends the moment you stop putting in effort. Think about Siri. It answers all your questions, but Siri never starts a conversation on its own. It's polite, but it doesn't have feelings. If your partner operates in a pseudo-intimate mode for the long term, you might feel helpless. You'll notice that while they might say they love you and offer routine care, they have no real interest in discovering who you are as a person. It feels like they're playing a role, and you're afraid that expressing your true feelings could damage the relationship. Real intimacy, on the other hand, is about mutual care and empathy, but it requires emotional risk. When you truly care about someone, you open yourself up to being hurt, rejected, or abandoned. This can create anxiety and fear. Why does your partner behave this way? Chances are their parents had a pseudo-intimate relationship. They may have rarely or never expressed love or affection openly. Growing up in such an environment, children often come to believe that relationships are just routine interactions. Another factor is their relationship with their parents. For example, if your parents were emotionally supportive when you felt upset, you likely developed a secure attachment style. This leads to beliefs like, I'm cared for, I'm valued, I'm worthy of love. Later, you'll carry these expectations into your romantic relationships. But if your parents ignored, rejected, or dismissed your needs, you might suppress your emotions and develop beliefs like, I'm not allowed to feel, I'm not worthy of love. These beliefs carry into relationships, making you anxious when your partner doesn't meet your expectations or driving you to run away from conflict. Children from such environments are more likely to develop avoidant personality traits. If your partner is avoidant, some people might tell you to just leave. But that's not always realistic. Maybe your partner has other great qualities, or you're staying for the sake of your kids. How can you build more intimacy in this situation? First, understand that avoidant behavior doesn't mean your partner is cold or doesn't care about you. Someone who truly doesn't care would simply say they're not interested. Avoidance often comes from a mix of wanting connection but being afraid of it. Your partner might feel uncomfortable or pressured in the relationship, which makes them want to withdraw. Deep down, they still want to connect, but they don't know how to handle those feelings, so they avoid them instead. You need to figure out what they're afraid of and what's causing them to feel pressure. This pressure isn't your fault. It's rooted in their inner wounds, like fear of criticism, misunderstanding, or control. Observe their behavior and identify what triggers their avoidance. Once you understand their motivations, you can make small adjustments to ease their fears. With time and effort, your relationship can grow deeper and more meaningful. Follow me for more daily insights into psychology. The lack of love, personality, and intimate relationships is someone who just attaches to whoever is around them. They'll become attached to the person who's with them at the time, and if that person leaves, they'll feel sad and cry. But if someone new comes along, they'll forget about the hurt. It seems like they love everyone, but also no one at all. What they really want is someone to talk to when they're lonely, someone to comfort them when they're sad. They just want to be loved, but don't truly fall in love with anyone. What they need is emotional support to handle feelings they can't place anywhere. From a psychological perspective, this behavior usually stems from unmet childhood needs. As we grow, we develop many emotional needs, like companionship, recognition, and a sense of security. If these needs aren't met in childhood, they tend to search for them in others as adults. For example, they might constantly be in relationships, unable to handle being single. If the person they're with doesn't meet their expectations, They'll move on to the next one without hesitation because they never truly loved the person. They just wanted someone to play the role of an ideal parent and love them. There are also those who grew up in toxic family environments, like with parents who had bad tempers. As adults, they might find someone who is very kind and gentle with them, but they'll overlook other flaws this person might have. All they see is the kindness because they never received that kind of gentleness growing up. They crave that feeling of being loved and treated with care because they didn't get it from their parents. Psychologist Carl Jung said that a person spends their whole life trying to integrate the personality they developed in childhood. A lack of love personality works the same way. The path to happiness is to first learn to love yourself before seeking love from others. This means accepting yourself, acknowledging that you're missing love, and accepting the imperfect parts of your personality. You need to take care of your own needs. Once you're financially independent and have experienced life, you stop obsessing over whether someone loves you. You won't second guess yourself or doubt your worth. You'll believe, I deserve the best, and give yourself positive affirmations. Once you start radiating positive energy, your life will change. Even if no one else loves you, at least you can unconditionally believe in and love yourself.